Good afternoon. I'm Creeson Agecoutay. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. With their focus on healthcare, the Premier's meeting continued today on day 2 in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Northern Premiers held a press conference earlier in the day to talk about issues important to them, such as Arctic sovereignty, natural resources, and consulting Indigenous leaders in healthcare legislation. Here's what the Premiers of the Yukon and Nunavut had to say.
And so we did something very progressive in that we did not have a health authority, which were one of the only regions, but what we did do is we had First Nations leaders come to the table, and they actually were part of the architecture of the legislation, because folks really, I think across the country, you're going to see people feel underrepresented in our healthcare system. So it's incredibly important for people to see themselves in the delivery.
Nunavut holds 22 of the 31 critical minerals that are identified, with iron ore just being added as well. So from that lens, there's incredible opportunity in terms of unlocking and supplying Canada the resources that they need. The challenge, as I had mentioned, is the lack of infrastructure to get those to market.
Over to Saskatchewan now, where the Government of Canada has formally apologized to 9 Dakota and Lakota bands this week. Most of them came to Canada in 1876 after defeating U.S. forces at the Battle of the Little Bighorn in Montana. Some returned to the U.S., others remained in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, where they were labeled as refugees. Video journalist Rachel May has more on the apology and the long-lasting impacts of that label.
I'm here today to deliver this honest and genuine apology on behalf of the Government of Canada to the 9 Dakota Lakota First Nations in Canada and their citizens.
Today, Canada's Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations was at the Whitecap Dakota Nation, south of Saskatoon, to deliver a long-awaited apology. 9 Dakota and Lakota First Nations, now in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, heard Gary Anandasangari say that Canada had denied them their rights. He apologized and committed to working with them to ensure something like this never happens again.
You know, the best time to this type of work was yesterday or the day before, but the second best time is today.
These Dakota and Lakota bands came to Canada after wars against the U.S. They didn't sign treaties with Canada and were denied rights and benefits, even though they were on the edges of their pre-contact territories.
The 9 communities that are involved today in the apology have been waiting for over 260 years for Canada's failure to be corrected. Nothing's going to bring back the past. Nothing's going to bring back the indignity faced by many.
While today marked a historic first step, the 9 First Nations emphasized that there was a lot of work to be done. FSIN Vice Chief Ali Bear expressed that this apology marks a critical step towards reclaiming everything her people have lost.
I can't speak my language. One day I will. And I will say that one day I will speak my language. And I give thanks to all of those that are language keepers in this room who continue to keep our language alive.
Chief Don Smoke of Dakota Plains First Nation in Manitoba invited his daughter Sophia to speak. She emphasized that it is time for youth to step up and ensure a better future.
While my grandfather died waiting for this simple apology, his roof will be our floor. We will ask for more and we will never stop.
More meetings with Anandasangari are planned. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
A fire in northern Manitoba First Nation has claimed 2 lives over the weekend in the early morning hours of Saturday, July 13th. Cross Lake RCMP responded to calls of a fire at a house in Pimichikamak Cree Nation, a community more than 500 kilometers north of Winnipeg. Once on scene, RCMP were told that someone was still inside the burning building after unsuccessful attempts by neighbors to save them. The Cross Lake Volunteer Fire Department put out the fire and found 2 bodies inside. RCMP say their identities have yet to be confirmed. RCMP continue to investigate with the help of their forensics team and the Office of the Fire Commissioner. Do you have an upcoming event you want APTN News to attend or have a story idea for us? Here's how you can reach us. Send us your news tips or invite to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories you may have missed, go to aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, LinkedIn, and X. And you can watch this newscast anywhere, anytime on YouTube. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Members of a remote community on BC's Central Coast have made the trek to Victoria to bring back an important treasure. As CTV's Anna McMillan shows us, the Royal British Columbia Museum is returning a chief's seat to the Healthsuck Nation.
A blessing in Victoria before a long journey to Bella Bella.
We're here to celebrate the homecoming of this beautiful seat.
A homecoming to the Healthsuck Nation. This chief seat, or settee, was carved by Captain Richard Carpenter around 1900.
He was a master of woodwork.
Carpenter was a hereditary chief, so this was his seat. It was purchased in 1911 and has been at the Royal BC Museum ever since.
We've only been able to see much of his work in museums.
Museums around the world, from New York to Berlin. This is the first of Carpenter's treasures to come home.
He has hundreds of descendants that are alive and, carrying on, his legacy.
Many of Carpenter's descendants were here to receive the chief seat, including his great-grandson, Steve Carpenter.
Our family, in their own way, are taking up the leadership role. And I'm kind of proud of that. They're carrying on the tradition that my great-grandfather started or carried on from his grandfather, probably.
The cedar seat will be boxed up and driven back to Bella Bella, where it will be unveiled at a community feast.
For that to go home, to be part of our community again, is huge for me.
The nation brought 3 items home during the pandemic and is in talks with the Royal BC Museum to have others returned.
The reclamation and the repatriation of our treasures coming home has been something that our elders have dreamed of, and it's, becoming a reality.
A reality experienced by other nations, including the New Hulk, who had a totem returned from the RBCM last year.
It feels like Captain is coming home.
Anna McMillan, CTV News, Victoria.
Most Indigenous families look to Jordan's principal to help them with their medical costs, but one mom in Manitoba was met with a lack of compassion. That story when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. A mother from the Agecoutay Ojibwe Nation northeast of Winnipeg is speaking out about a troubling experience she had with Jordan's principal services during a medical visit to Winnipeg. APTN Sarah Bettens brings you part 1 of that story.
When Laura Bone wakes up, her 4-year-old daughter Jade is the first thing on her mind. A whiteboard in her living room reminds a single mother of 8 of Jade's feeding schedule. There are binders of medical documents piled with diagnoses, discharge forms, and future appointment dates.
Audiology is here because we have to make a follow-up in Brandon. Because the times they tried to test her, she had to be sleeping.
Jade lives with several health conditions, including cough syndrome, a genetic disorder that affects the development of the brain, eyes, and spinal cord. Shortly after Jade's birth, in April 2020, Bone was connected to the Jordan's principal office in Agecoutay Ojibwe First Nation, which helped parents get support for their children. The community is about 3 hours northwest of Winnipeg. Bone doesn't drive, but every month she travels off reserve for Jade's medical appointments. She says the Agecoutay and Jordan's principal office helped Jade with physical and occupational therapy, specialized medical equipment, and transportation to appointments. But after a bad experience during a weeks-long medical stay at the Health Science Center in Winnipeg, Bone says she'll never seek Jordan's principal's help again.
Jordan's principal told us that they would help us no matter what, like they would be beside us through it all. And then the first week we were there, it was kind of like they expected it to be over with right away. It was like, okay, are they done? Like, are you guys going to be, how long, much longer?
In March, Bone, Jade, and daughter Haley drove to the Health Sciences Center in Winnipeg so Jade could get her feeding tube inserted. Jade got pneumonia and had to stay longer than planned. During that time, Bone alleges a Jordan's principal worker repeatedly asked how much longer the hospital stay would be, a question she didn't have an answer to. 3 weeks in, Bone claims she was told she could no longer use the program for accommodations. She recalls what she was allegedly told over the phone.
We had to find another way to stay. And then she said she would get a hold of NIHB and call me back.
At HSC, the Southern Chiefs organization oversees the Jordan's Principal program. In an email sent to APTN, Joni Wilson, the Jordan's Principal and Wellness Services lead at the SCO, said they could not comment on a specific client's file due to confidentiality, but that requests made to their Jordan's Principal program are never denied. Wilson said that they will refer to the appropriate Jordan's Principal office or program if they could not fulfill a request internally. She said medical transportation and accommodations are generally covered by the Medical Transportation Referral Unit at the First Nations and Inuit Health Branch. After contacting Non-Insured Health Benefits, or NIHB, Bone was able to secure coverage for accommodations. However, the entire experience left her distraught.
I just felt lost because I didn't know what to do. It's like, I don't know, I was just trying to be there for her. Like, I just wanted her to get better, and I don't know, it just hurt me that they did that to us.
Jordan's Principal was established in 2007 to ensure First Nations children, including those with severe medical issues like Jade, have access to the health, social, and educational supports they need. It's named after Jordan River Anderson, a child from Norway House Cree Nation who died in 2005 while the province of Manitoba and the federal government fought over who should pay his health expenses. In Part 2, we investigate what happened and look at the broader issues that families accessing Jordan's Principal are experiencing. Tune in tomorrow to hear the full story. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
And Sierra will have part 2 of that story in our evening APTN National Newscast later today. Make sure to join us then. Stay with us. Our next guest is the new Commissioner of Indigenous Languages. We're back in less than 3 minutes.
Over on the East Coast, St. John's 27, Charlottetown 25. Northern Quebec, Nujawak 15, La Grande River 16. Saguenay 27, Val d'Or 23. Southern Ontario, Toronto 20, Ottawa 25. Northern Ontario, Timmins 24, Sioux Lookout 17. Northern Manitoba, Churchill 13, Thompson 13. Gimli 16, Dauphin 18. Southern Saskatchewan, Regina 25, Yorkton 16. Uranium City 20, La Ronge 18. Northern AB, Fort McMurray 20, High Level 22. Lethbridge 25, Edmonton 21 and sunny there. Campbell River 19, Kamloops 23. Northern BC, Fort Nelson 24, Dease Lake 12. Nunavut, Rock River 13, Watson Lake 16. Northwest Territories, Yellowknife 20, Norman Wells 20 as well. Inuvik 13, Sax Harbor 13. Baker Lake 22, Chesterfield 19. Iqaluit 9, and Igloolik 5.
It's been 9 years since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its report that documented the intergenerational trauma of Canada's residential school system. From that report came the TRC's 94 calls to action that serve as a roadmap for all levels of government to complete in reconciliation efforts. Call to Action 15 is to appoint an Indigenous Languages Commissioner. That commissioner is Ronald E. Ignace, who now leads the Office of the Commissioner of Indigenous Languages. He joined our Sav Jonza in studio recently to tell us more about what's being done to strengthen Indigenous languages.
Commissioner Ignace, thank you for being here. First off, can you explain what state Indigenous languages are in Canada?
Well, yes, thank you for that question. The majority of the languages in Canada are either critically endangered or endangered, and those 3, 4, 5 languages that are viable, they are still threatened. So no language in Canada is safe. And that's according to UNESCO as well, who stated that, and I'm quoting them roughly.
That's very interesting.
And as a point of interest about languages, that there are approximately 70 or so languages in Canada. It's not clear how many languages exactly there are. People said 69, 70, maybe 90. But for a fact, though, that 50% of the languages in Canada, Indigenous languages in Canada, are in the province of British Columbia.
Oh, wow.
And unfortunately, those are smaller languages, and they fall into that category of endangered or critically endangered languages. Not to say that across the country that's not the issue, but the bulk of them, those languages in BC are in that category. But you have in this Manitoba, the Métis, Michif language is also, if not critically endangered, definitely endangered.
Oh, absolutely. It's very interesting. Can you tell us about some of the efforts your office are doing to restore and maintain fluency for those languages?
Well, actually, we have, as a commission, the Act, the Indigenous Languages Act, was promulgated in 2019, June of 2019. I, as a commissioner, and 3 directors, one was Robbie Watt, who is an Inuit, Georgina Liberty, who is Métis, and her office is down the street here, and Joan Grey Eyes, who is from Saskatchewan, and myself as commissioner. We together make up the board of directors, the governing board of the commission.
Can you explain what's needed to grow Indigenous languages further?
Well, as I was leading up to, we're just getting going on the commission. I want to explain, I think it's important that people know that we were appointed in June 13th of 2021, and we didn't take office until July of 2021. And by the way, they didn't tell us, oh, there is no commission, there's no blueprint for building a commission, so you got to build it from the ground up. And so we've been, and during COVID, and we've also, while building policies, procedures, and rules and regulations and such to run an office, a national office of this stature. It took over almost 2 years to build, but we also had to build a physical office. In our office, our headquarters is in Ottawa, in the Constitution Square building. But my sub office, I'm a Shuswap person. I'm from the Kamloops area, and so when I got appointed as commissioner, I made it a point to go back to the residential school in which I ran away from at the age of 16, and established my sub-office there in the Kamloops Indian Residential School. And so we've just, as of June of last year, we became fully operational as a commission. And our mandate is to support and champion Indigenous languages so that no language gets left behind, and a number of other mandates that we have in the language legislation, that the Indigenous Languages Act. But we've been holding sessions. The first, a year ago, a little over a year, we held our first national event in the Kamloops Powell Arbor. And what we did is we brought Inuit, Métis, and Indigenous First Nations frontline workers together to dialogue with the Commission and with themselves so that we could hear directly from the people about what they feel is important and necessary. And of course, one of the top items that we hear, and we've since had 3 other such, that was a model that we pursued. And so we had one here in Winnipeg with the Métis, and one in Ottawa with the urban Inuit, and one in Halifax with Mi'kmaq there. And what we've heard consistently, of course, and this is a big issue today in Montreal, is funding of Indigenous languages. Funding is a big issue for us. That's the other one is that we've heard consistently across the country is that we need trained teachers to teach the language, and as well as we need immersion courses to immerse, for language immersion, because the languages are in such a state that we need, I guess, to try to grow new speakers hothouse fashion, so to speak, if we may use that terminology.
It's fantastic that you're consulting the community so much on this, and it sounds like you've already done a lot of work. Can you explain briefly why Indigenous languages are so important to you and why you want to help with this?
Well, Indigenous languages are really important to us simply because they express who we are as a people. They express our worldview, our values, our principles. And so much stigmatization has gone into and demeaning and illegitimizing our languages, that it has had a negative impact across the country with all Indigenous peoples. So in order to, we say, and our languages come from the land. So in order to not only to heal the land that we find the circumstances we find ourselves in today with climate change, but also we need to heal ourselves, and in so doing, healing ourselves, we will assist in helping heal the land as well.
Oh, that's really beautiful, Commissioner Ignace, and we'll have to leave it there. But thank you so much for coming and talking with us about this today.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Ignace and Sav. And that's your midday newscast for this Tuesday, July 16th. Dennis Ward is back for your evening national newscast this afternoon. Make sure to join us again. Hai hai miigwech masicho. Thank you for watching.